Early aggression against the Tar Heels made Clemson look like Clemson again. We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM, The Roar. Hopefully you'll check me out tonight on the radio from 7 to 9 every Tuesday night. And as always here, thank you for tuning in, the everydayers. We know how we do it here on Locked On. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday every single week. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We had a ton of stuff to talk about leading up to this big game against Boston College, another away game for Clemson. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On the rundown, I wanted to talk about trusting the players and the quarterback room and what the game plan will be for Boston College this weekend, because Clemson needs to carry the momentum forward that they had from this game against the Tar Heels. Early aggression, clean distribution made Clemson look like, well, Clemson that we remember. How do they bottle it up, though, and make it something that will last more than just one quarter, more than just one half, more than three quarters? How do they make a complete game out of this? Because what we've seen is a little bit better here and there and here and there. And even in the win, it wasn't the greatest played game overall. There were a few problems that you probably saw, some concerns still lingering for the team that I think are still going to be there when the more difficult teams come around. You know, this team didn't get anything solved other than really just playing a really bad Tar Heels team. And it's good because you want to be able to have those games where it brings your confidence back, maybe slows the game down a little bit for you, maybe shows you kind of where you're at more compared to other players that maybe just aren't as good as you are. But Clemson needed the fast start. They needed the quick tempo, the aggression at the beginning. They need to bottle that up in a way of, you can't really bottle up the trick play. You know, the trick play with Antonio Williams throwing the ball to TJ Moore for the touchdown, one play, one pass, one touchdown, 7 points. You're not going to get that every single week. So to me, while that was great, it was also, you know, a product of the opponent that you were playing. It was clear that North Carolina's defense and their secondary were, I would say, playing soft. If anything, it seemed as if they didn't really want to be a part of the game. When you go back and look at it, their nickels, their cornerbacks, their safeties really didn't have any kind of showing to me that they wanted to be aggressive, that they wanted to attack the player with the football, make a tackle, gang tackle, whatever it may be. More often than not, they were backing off and they were not playing that aggressive. And in a lot of ways, like just not even aggressively pushing players out of bounds. I was very shocked by the lack of, you know, aggression from a defense that's coached by a Bill Belichick. You got to understand that Bill Belichick, you know, still doesn't have all his players, but I would expected something better than this. I'm worried that the experiment with that is going to crash and burn if it hasn't already, to be honest with you. Trust showed up with the leaders on the team, Antonio Williams being one of those guys. And he needed to start off strong for himself, for his teammates, for the fan base too, because we see things that we maybe didn't see in the past. You know, we see things like he has a contract with Nike, you know, And so when you saw that, you probably thought, well, he needs to help the team win games if he's going to be getting these big, nice contracts with Nike. And I think, that's a fair assessment to say. The coaching staff trusts him, and obviously he's a leader for the team. And he has a unique skill set where he can throw the ball when he gets an opportunity. The leaders and the playmakers getting their hands on the football in the right way hasn't always been easy for this team. And so the fact that they were able to play with a little bit more of a tempo, it seemed as if they were much better at getting the ball in the right players' hands at the right time, helped everybody else work in rhythm. Cade Klubnik worked in rhythm for the most part at the beginning and showed some progression, showed some pocket presence, kept the team, on schedule when needed. Certain stars kind of rose up a little bit that you were expecting. I mean, you had big plays from Antonio Williams, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, Tristan Smith. You had big plays from Adam Randall. You really had big plays from every wide receiver, the running back, Adam Randall, your tight end, and Christian Bentinker in the red zone. Clemson has a lot of intentional skill players that you can trust, that you just have to really mold around what works best in what situations. What do you need in that situation? How many yards do you need? What type of play will work? And what is the defense offering you? Guys like Adam Randall, to me, would be my pivot point, my cornerstone, if you will. Adam Randall is, to me, a megastar on this team that has been much more than when anybody would have ever expected. His ability to thrive in open space, despite changing positions. You see a lot of the same skill sets that you remember with Travis Etienne. Big shout out to him and Jacksonville for winning that game Monday night. Travis Etienne is a guy who's just versatile and can hurt you in many different ways. Similar to an Alvin Kamara, as we mentioned, Dabo Samuel as a comparable. DJU used to call him a DK Metcalf because of just how freak of an athlete he was and his body shape and style. But I really wish that we could find a way to get Adam Randall to play another year with Clemson, as good as he's been at the running back position. Once the offense kind of got that spark, got that fire, got kind of the crowd going, the defense carried with that. To me, the defensive line did better. The secondary, we saw a bunch of things from Avion Terrell, did really well. And so the team played better when they have that confidence. And as Dabo Swinney mentioned, there's a balance there. They've heard and listened to a lot of the outside noise, and it maybe had weighed on them a little bit too much. But that's what they're going to have to get used to. I don't apologize for any of that, because it's my job to analyze, overanalyze, criticize, overcriticize, brag, overbrag. I don't know. But it's my job to kind of amplify everything, because that's what works in this world of sports media. But it's the player's job to block out that noise. I mean, it's not going to get any better for them. They want to make money. They want to be professionals. I mean, if you go to Dallas or Philadelphia or any major market in the country that has an NFL team, and you are on that NFL team, and you put up the first 4 games like you did here at Clemson, there's going to be a lot of problems on the radio stations, a lot of problems even on the national media. Stephen A. Smith's going to call you out. Everybody's going to call you out. So the criticism is just what comes along with, and the overanalyzing things goes along with sports. But Clemson definitely responded against the team they needed to do. 35-3 at halftime, put the game away, allowed Dabo to play a little bit, or to coach a little bit more loosely, and to get in more of a rotation on the roster. Speaking of rotation on roster, we'll continue to talk about that quarterback room on segment 2 here on Locked On Clemson. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is a fun and simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like passing yards for Josh Allen or rushing touchdowns for Saquon Barkley, and just like that, you're in the game. It's fast. You can make your lineup in under a minute. Use the new Stacks feature, and it lets you build a lineup using multiple stat types from the same player, pass yards, rush yards, touchdowns, all in just one entry. And with the new injury reboot, if one of your players leaves the game early and doesn't return, that pick won't count against your entry. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Cade looked more like a conductor in game number 5 for Clemson. Christopher Vizina, more of a work in progress, still some of the same. How is this team planning to move forward in October, in November, in December, and then in 2026? Cade's growth hasn't been what we thought from 2024. You know, he had the spotlight on him. He had the opportunity to kind of make a big name for himself. And he really, for lack of a better word, fumbled it away. You know, he had many opportunities to do so, had the games to do so, had the team we felt like around him to do so. And it really wasn't all his fault. You know, I mean, the offensive line under Matt Luke has gotten worse this year, and that's a big concern moving forward. The wide receivers have done better and gotten progressively better, but Cade's timing's off. Cade's accuracy's been off, and his pocket presence has been just awful. But what did he do in this game against the Tar Heels to kind of make you feel a little bit better? Well, you know, one thing is that the progressions started to show up on tape. You know, Cade worked through his first read, his second read, and then into a check down, even a third read, I believe. I believe Dabo mentioned that he had a fourth read. You know, so being able to do that is going to keep defenses on their toes a little bit better, make it less easy for them to figure out where you're going. Cade had gotten into a bad habit of picking one player and only using one player. He'd gotten into a bad habit of, if he didn't pick one player, the only other option he would have would be the check down. And so you're losing 2 or 3 other options on the field, and you're making the defense, once you start making a habit of that good defensive coordinators or talented defenses that have any sort of IQ are going to be able to see that and lock in on that. You know, holding the linebackers true, keeping the safeties' eyes in the backfield will help your wide receivers ball out. And we saw that against the Tar Heels. Now, I mentioned the Tar Heels secondary is terrible. Their defense is no good. So how much can you really take for that? You have to decide that yourself. But the fact that Clemson did take advantage of it is at least a big positive moving forward. You have to win games by tricking the defense, by forcing them to overplay their hand. And that's when you get the big explosive plays. When you make a habit of doing the same thing over and over and over, well, then you have a problem of, you know, making it easy on the defense to lock you down and lock your wide receivers down and then fluster you, especially if your offensive line doesn't hold up. Now, again, I've been a big pusher of pocket discipline for Cade Klubnik, and it improved. There was multiple highlight clips where he sits in a clean pocket and makes a throw relatively on time. His feet were not dancing around, not doing the Irish jig, his eyes settled in as well. It is all about, it's not really about Cade's legs, right? Cade, for whatever reason, got into this habit of trying to do everything from a position of scrambling and extreme movement with his feet. I'm not really sure why he was allowed to do that all off season and then fall into it. I mean, you can't tell me that this wasn't happening at practice. So I'm not really sure why he was allowed to, but when he keeps his feet quiet, his eyes move through progressions, and he delivers the ball better for sure as a quarterback. So that being said, Cade Klubnik is only here for this year. What's going to happen in 2026? Well, we demanded to see Christopher Vizina. You didn't really see him until middle of the third quarter. And Clemson basically didn't look very good when you look at like their drives. They started with 4 touchdowns in a row, and then a punt, touchdown, punt, field goal, turnover on downs, and a fumble. So they had more failed drives than successful drives, basically from the second quarter on. So there is still a big concern that this Clemson team cannot put together a full game, even against a team that you should be able to move the ball against, even with your second string. So there's still a lot of question marks from there because Cade still had the ball. I mean, they had 2 punts and a touchdown. I think 3 punts and a touchdown. Yeah, 3 punts and a touchdown with Cade in the game from the second quarter to the third quarter. So there is a concern there of, again, consistency for this team. It's not that they don't have talent. It's that, can they put it together for an entire game? Another thing that I like about Clemson is just their usage of Christian Bentinker, being able to slip off of blockers, chip a little bit in with the blocking scheme, and then go off. He's a bigger dude. I don't know if he's always been that way, but he looks big, and he moves with some giddy up to him. He's not super fast, but he's not super slow either. And when he gets the ball, he seems to have a knack for just trying to get to the end zone or get to move the chains in the best possible angle. I love the angles that he played. I loved his ball protection, his ball security. I loved his ability to get open against the linebackers. So more featured usage of the tight end with Christian Bentinker, I think, is something that you have to continue with forward. And it goes to say that loyalty needs to not get in your way. If a younger guy is doing what you're seeing on Saturdays trumps experience. Results on Saturdays trump what you did in practice, and results on Saturday trump what your graduation class is and what your seniority is. Clemson needs to reward results on Saturdays, and Christian Bentinker is showing that. Gideon Davidson, a little bit getting in the mix as well, but still very inconsistent, helping out Clemson and the quarterback. But I like where Cade was throwing some really good balls. When he stays in the pocket, he throws some pretty good balls in there. You don't go with his stat line and have a bad day. It's 22 for 24, 254 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's not a bad day by any means for Cade Klubnik. Is it something where I'm still holding out hope for the more difficult teams out there? Yeah, of course. I think any realistic Clemson fan should know that Cade grew in this game. He showed progression in this game and pocket presence in this game. But you're still holding out to see what happens against teams that are at the caliber that you would expect Clemson to have a battle with. So there'll be those games coming up later on this season. But right now, this is a time and point and place in Clemson where they just need to get the wins, right? They need to build momentum. They don't have to be perfect. And some things can be a little bit more egregious than other things. But as long as they walk away with the W, then that is something that they can spend positively with the fan base, with the donors, with the players, with the recruits, and they can keep moving forward. Because if you can't really spend poor play and losses. You can spend, wins and not being perfect, but you can't do the other way around as easily as we know, because we've seen that. All right, finishing up the show, we're going to talk about some of the game plan against Boston College, because I know you're excited about seeing the Tigers play again and not having a bye week, because it's going to be pretty awesome. BC is another quality control check for Clemson coming up here on, we're going to talk about it here on segment 3 on Locked On Clemson. College football is back, and there's nothing like it. The tailgates, the rivalries, the atmosphere in the stands this time of year brings out the best in fans. But let's be real, getting tickets shouldn't feel like a tougher battle than what's happening on the field. Between endless queues, surprise fees, and prices that spike at checkout, it can get frustrating fast. And that's why so many fans turn to Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the crowd. It's the fastest, easiest way to score last-minute tickets at great prices. And the best part, no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can preview the exact view from your seat before you purchase. And I love the zone deals where you can pick your section, and Game Time picks the best available seats that will save you the most money. Make it stress-free now. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKOE or LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Locked On College for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. This episode is also brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood. They become an extension of your home, like the sports bar packed with your team's fan base, the wing joint that's unbeatable on game day, or the local gym that's been serving your community for years. These are the places that bring people together, and when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole community thrives with them. One of those places in our area is Chestnut Coffee House and Market. From the moment you walk in, what you'll see is unity, hospitality, coffee, community. It's not just a coffee shop. It's where people gather together, share their stories, and slow down for a second in the middle of their busy day. The team at Chestnut creates a great atmosphere of love and comfort that makes you want to stay a while and even come back. And also, they're great Clemson Tiger fans, and they run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, please go and support your local favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. All right, going to finish up the show talking about the game plan. Now let's lab it up together for the game plan against Boston College. In Chestnut Hill, it has to be like what we used to talk about back in the day. It has to be one of those business trips, suit and tie, ready to go. The crowd could be very quiet. The temperatures could be very cool, and an opponent that just come off of kind of a bad loss with a lot of players injured can maybe be a trap game. Maybe not. We'll see. But the game plan has to be clear. You have to keep the opening rhythm, the opening aggression that you did, and you need to keep the foot on the gas a little bit. As Eric McLean said in his video, when you put in the backups, I'm so tired of seeing the same, like you put in the backups and you give them vanilla. Okay, well, if you're up 21 points, put in the backups and don't give the backups vanilla. Okay. Give them something to work with. So keep that rhythm going. Keep the menu aggressive. Follow it through outside of the first quarter. So now the idea is, hey, we know you can start off the game strong, but can you do so for the first half and into the second half? Can you do so when you move into your backups if you have to? Hopefully against Boston College, another 2-score underdog, that you would be able to bring in your backups again, because again, Clemson needs to do everything they can to get the guys that are going to still be there in 2026 up to speed. This team, the starters on this team have kind of failed their goal. They've really messed up the beginning of the season so bad that their postseason is, just a glimmer of hope, honestly. But what can you build off of? Well, again, I think you start with and end with Adam Randall. He is such a unique weapon that if you're not using him as much as possible, you are hurting your team. He can kill you in the run game, in the pass game, in the screen game, whatever it may be. He is a megastar, the big weapon for Clemson, in my opinion. So you need to give him the touches that he has earned. And the offensive line has got to start to shape up a little bit better with the run blocking. I'm still very concerned that a team like North Carolina was able to keep Clemson in check running the football. And I understand that the passing game was just so good, but this team should have been routed. And maybe Dabo Swinney doesn't want to, maybe he has a house that he lives in the same neighborhood with Bill Belichick, and they're in the same HOA or something. I don't know. But the way I see it is that Dabo cannot play friends with these guys. He's got to blow some of them out. It didn't have a problem doing that when he had Trevor Lawrence in town. So getting back to that, keeping the foot on the gas, even when your backups are in there, is really key. I don't think that as I mentioned earlier, I don't think you can really rely on trick plays anymore than once a game, maybe. But making sure that your offense is built successfully around the right players doing the right things. For example, the right players doing the right things. The guy that can do it all is Adam Randall. Probably the other guys that can do it all outside of running the ball maybe running the ball would be Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown. Those are kind of your versatile do-it-all guys. Your true wide receivers that can just get open and burn you at any moment would be Moore and Wesco. And then your true jump ball guy is Tristan Smith. So use them in those scenarios. Same thing with Ian Shefflin. If you're going to use Ian Shefflin, well, you got to use him where he's most successful. You don't need to see him doing a jet sweep anymore. I mean, that's just not appropriate, right? So using your players in the right spots. I understand trying things for the sake of trying things. But when the players don't seem to be fit for those types of plays, you should have never ran them in the first place. Keep the pressure on, keep the heat on. And that will carry over to the defense. The biggest thing about the defense is that Tom Allen factor on the field. I mean, they seem to have responded to that. Stephylan Green is getting a much more pressure on the interior line. And the other guys need to respond and help him out and don't leave him all by himself as well. A thing about the defense I would say is I want to see some more takeaways again. I loved how they were very good with that at the beginning of the season, and now they've kind of lost it. They didn't have any significant takeaways against the Tar Heels. And a lot of that, too, is because the Tar Heels went into that LSU mindset of just get the ball out of the quarterback's hand as quick as possible, right? But it is still key for the Clemson defense to get some opportunities in the turnovers. If they're not going to get a bunch of turnovers, then what they did against the Tar Heels is still going to be great, which is limit them on their third downs. 18% third down conversions. I mean, that is just really good. So continue to build on that for sure. Rotation with a purpose. continue to push the offensive success rate, continue to be aggressive. And I think Clemson will be able to carry that forward for another win against the Boston College Eagles. For me, I am going to take Clemson to cover the spread against the Eagles. I was a little bit worried about it earlier on, but they're getting more and more banged up. And Clemson relatively is, for the most part, healthy outside of a few guys. I know a lot of people have asked me about Elijah Thurman. I think what Dabo is saying is that he's still dealing with some things, but he's expected to be back. Another thing before we go is they're kind of reeling on who they're going to get, because they had a rotation at the Tiger position between Tink Kelly and Shelton Lewis. Shelton Lewis has now left the team, going to go into the transfer portal. He's basically quit on the team, in order to preserve another year of eligibility for himself. And that, I don't blame the player in that, because that is really the nature of not having player contracts. He's violated, no contract because there is none. And hopefully teams are paying these players by month and not by season, because it'd be a lot of wasted money if somebody leaves you after 4 games. All right. Hey, thank you so much again for sticking with me to the very end of the show. This is on a Tuesday edition. It's also a big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation, a longtime 2-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. Hey, that's it for this episode. We'll see you tomorrow as we continue to start to dig into more of the game against the Boston College Eagles. But we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.